Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is us again, Jason,
And Andy.
from Infinity Flux Comics, here to do our day early comic review video. So, every single Tuesday, after we're done bagging and boarding the comics, we divide them up, we read them, and we do what we call our spoiler light reviews, where we're going to tell you if there's any major first appearances, any super major happenings that are going to make you want to grab these off the shelf before they disappear. But more than that, we're going to tell you what the comics are about without spoiling all the fun of them. So that way you know which new ones you might want to check out and read. So without further ado, let's begin.
Yeah, some long-awaited books this week, and none more so than the Geiger 80-page giant. This has been up for order many times. It got pushed and pushed and pushed, but it's finally here. And I was so excited about this because I love Geiger. I think that's one of the best new series from Image. Jeff Johns really has set up this new world, not only the character of Geiger, the glowing man, but kind of intersperse some other ideas of characters in this new pseudo superhero timeline. Well, this is really cool because this is our first taste of some of that wider scope of the Geiger universe. And this is kind of multiple stories, most of them written by Jeff Johns, but there are a few from like Peter Tomasi and a few others telling about different little sections of this world. Now, a big one is the first story in it, which we find out at the end is setting up a new miniseries coming, I think after the Junkyard Joe book that's going to be coming out about the robot, which you get a lot of in this. But the first story in this is the one I really want to highlight because it is called, I believe it's called The Red Coat, and it is a historic drama action. It's really cool. It actually starts with
It's got superpowers too.
It's got superpowers, and it starts with Washington crossing the Delaware, and how that leads to a redcoat getting immortality. You'll have to see. Let's just say I really want a George Washington spin-off book about all of. You'll just have to read it to see what he does in this. But there's a bunch of stories in there, so that one's really cool. It actually takes place during the Geiger timeline later because this character becomes immortal. You kind of see what he's all about. There's the story of Barney, the two-headed dog that's Geiger's dog. You see how he finds him and adopts him. And then one of the big parts about Geiger is it's set around Las Vegas, but now in the post-war, nuclear war they're in, all the casinos have become their own little kingdoms. And you get a story from most of those kingdoms, which is really cool because there is some very specific ones, like there's a horror-themed one that you'll have to read to check out, but Kelly Jones, famous kind of horror artist, does the art for it. Really cool. So many stories in this. There's also a really nice backup letter by Jeff Johns talking about kind of what's to come and the whole inception of the Geiger universe, and some hints at the Junkyard Joe, which will be the next series coming out, I believe, in summer. So if you've liked Geiger, this is awesome to finally get this. It really does enrich the world and kind of set you up for what's to come. And if you haven't read Geiger, I still think this is a really fun one-shot where after you read this, you'll definitely want to go out and get Volume 1 because it is fantastic. Art's great, writing's great. It is a oversized issue, as you can see. It's actually got a spine, 80 pages.
Yeah, 80 pages, that's right.
Only $7.99, so really good price. You will love this. Got some variant covers, of course. We're actually sold out of one of them that features the red coat, but it's by Brian Hitch, who does the interior art on that story as well. We've got, of course, a blank cover. We have, this is the Levens cover, which you learn more about those characters. And you have the Pelletier variant with Barney all grown up on the cover. So definitely check out Geiger. It's probably my favorite issue of the week. Great to jump back into that world.
Yeah, I can add that as soon as Andy was done reading it, he couldn't wait to show me certain parts of it. He's
Yeah.
like, you got to see this page and that page and that page. So I had no idea you were going to start with an indie book. Typically, Marvel DC just have the bigger
Yeah.
books of the week, but I also am starting with an indie book. Something happens in crossover number 11. So that's a lot of what our show's about. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, what it is, without ruining it for you. In the solicitation for this, they said that someone, and it said redacted, is going to appear from the Kirkman estate. And so, yes, there is a major character appearance from the Kirkman estate in this issue of Crossover 11. Now, will it blow up online or will it not? I don't know. I was looking earlier to see if this was selling for a lot, and there just aren't many of them up. So I just want everybody to know, first thing, there's probably going to be an article on Crossover 11 and this major Kirkman character being in it. Now, as far as who it is, the biggest hint I'll give is he is a character that Kirkman really likes to write, even if he's a character that I think is kind of divisive to the fans of Kirkman stuff. That's as much as I will say.
Battle Pope.
I will
That's
neither
what I
deny
always...
nor... In fact, you know what? I will. I will deny. It is not Battle
it's
Pope.
not Battle Pope.
We already saw him in the background.
Yeah, I
of a
mean, he's already
previous
been
crossover,
in it.
so that's not... But I just didn't want anyone to miss out on that one. Now, what's going on in this issue? Well, Donny Cates appeared in the last issue of Crossover. He is writing himself in this book. They had other comic writers. They're getting killed. They're being murdered. Chip Zdarsky was in the one. They've already revealed a few of that are dead. So this is as meta gets. I think this is a storyline that some people are going to love, and I think this is a storyline some people are going to go, nope, too much, not for me.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean, everybody can have their different opinions, but I'll tell you, Cates, he definitely has some courage to write something like this, because he's not just in it a little. This is a lot of an interview with him by a comic book detective. So it's crazy, and about why does he know about crossover, and has he been writing it, and you'll have to read to see just where this meta rabbit hole takes you.
Wow.
And as far as the character who's appearing from the Kirkman estate, not a lot of them. Definitely more of an ending, like, they're going to be in it now. But I do think we're going to have some new people signing up for future issues of Crossover when they hear about this character being in this.
It's funny because it's like, with Crossover, I doubt you're ever going to, other than the beginning, never have any first appearances of characters. So it's like, the hype behind this is for the love of the characters that are coming back.
Me, like everyone, I've been waiting for Spawn to be in it. And if he ever is, I don't know how I'm gonna hide that. I'm just gonna be like, buy this one. But
what I've hinted at, it's here. Okay.
I know, or what we've all been waiting for. So here is the Gorham variant. And then there is the 1 in 25 Shawl Virgin variant that we're selling to our customers for $20. Cates loves his swords. Swords are great, though. I mean, sword or gun, you got to go sword if you're in fiction. Yeah, and so that's all the covers for that.
Cool. So next up is another big one. One that people knew was coming, which is always kind of nice when it's not a surprise first appearance. But a really cool new character. This is Amazing Spider-Man 88. And see on the cover, it is Queen Goblin. I keep wanting to say Goblin Queen, but it's Queen Goblin.
Do we get an origin in this one?
We get a... Origin is a funny thing with this. So you do find out who the Queen Goblin is and how she became what she is. So yes, for an origin, it's less of like, my parents were killed in a back alley and now I swear vengeance.
I just didn't know if they were going to, because sometimes they write it, they like string it along.
Yeah, no, this is not string along, which is a big part I appreciate with this, because they get right into who she is and kind of who she's maybe working for. I'll say you get a lot of explanation to the Beyond Corporation, which is something that has been, I don't want to say strung along, but it's kind of been one of those simmering mysteries.
Bigger mysteries.
You actually do have a conversation in this where the leader of the Beyond Corporation says, look, this is a thing that happens. It's very funny. She alludes to Siege, the series from many years ago, but references it. and how the some ideas in that pertain to what they are doing. So no surprise, they're not that great of people. I think we could have seen that coming, but
An evil
and the evil
corporation. This is a
corporation.
first in all of fiction.
So maybe if you think about it, we might know why there is a room of sandwiches, talking sandwiches, because they are Beyond Corporation is making something, maybe a bunch of somethings. You'll have to read it to find out. Great issue. So it is first full. It's not a cameo. She talks. She flies. She attacks. Um, I think this was a great issue. I am definitely enjoying it. And apparently, from one of the letters in the back of it from the editor, the next two issues are supposed to be some of the scariest Spider-Man stories you'll ever read. So I'm very excited about that because she seems here to stay at least for a while. But I will drop a little hint that um, who she is, you know, the Norman Osborn to the Green Goblin, who she is, has actually been around for a while, all the way back in Spectacular Spider-Man. So this is a character that people will know, and I think that makes it kind of even more exciting when someone you know turns into a big villain. So we've got some variants for it. First up, we have the Mana X-Gwen variant with nothing to do with Spider-Man on the cover, but that's okay. Then we have the 1 in 10 Gleason design variant. Really cool. If you're going to go hard for the Queen Goblin and get first appearance and all that, this is a great one to get. We are selling this to our customers for $25.
All right.
And then we,
you got more.
I got one more. We have a 1 in 25. This is the Bagley variant that we are selling for $35. And that back there, that's the Queen Goblin's weapon. It is actually a pumpkin mace. So pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of good covers on that. Even the A cover is just such a good first appearance.
It is. Yeah.
Sort of cover.
Clear.
Okay, so I read Batman issue 120. So Batman is still international in this. He is still dealing with the fallout of Batman Inc. They were accused of murdering a new villain named Abyss, who you see in the background there. Last issue, Batman was blinded by Abyss. Abyss did something that took away his eyesight, and so you get to see how that shakes out in this one. So this is Joshua Williamson writing Batman with art by Molina, and I have to say, you know, we're a few issues into their run now. The Molina art is fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's just really, really good. Not everybody was on board of the interesting art style that was going on previously. I thought it was okay. You know, I like art to switch up, but I have to say I'm really enjoying this art now. So I wanted to bring that up. But yeah, so Batman is still international. He's trying to find out why Batman Incorporated might have killed this villain, which we saw in previous issues. It's not that simple. He might not be dead. And now he is blind, which, of course, yes, the expression blind as a bat is addressed.
Okay, good.
They do address that. On top of that, Lex Luthor has something to do with all this. You know, he's the one who's been funding the new Batman Incorporated. Well, why is he doing that? You know, is Luthor having one of his rare moments of trying to be a hero, or is he doing his normal villain thing? You will definitely know by the end of this issue. Batman also in this issue, he needs to talk with Batman Incorporated, and they're all in this prison that, funny enough, was built by Luthor. So, you know, he has difficulties getting in. And, of course, it ends with some major surprises as far as some secret allegiances come out by the end of this issue. So another strong issue of Batman. Even though he's not in Gotham, the story and the art is still spectacular. The backup story is more of the one they've been doing, which is Maps as Robin. And, you know, Batman didn't really want this to happen. It just kind of happened that Maps was dressed playing Robin and ended up where Batman was, and Batman needs help. So more on that story. It's not over, though. There's more that happens to it. And so we have this variant by, who can guess based on the amount of dark colors? Matina! Matina versus Bermejo one of these days for who can
Yeah.
do the darkest but coolest covers. Oh yeah, and then we have this 1 in 25 hip variant.
It's by Dan Hip, but also the Batman's pretty hip.
He really is. Yeah, this is the Batman is hip cover that we're selling to our customers for $30. Oh, there's yet another. Wow.
Oh yeah, big one.
Yes, there's this 1 in 50 Jock variant that is also foil. Real cool that we're selling for $40.
My next one, we're checking back in with Dark Knights of Steel. This is Dark Knights of Steel number 4. And there's an art change on this, which actually makes sense in this issue, because this is kind of a flashback. The art is by Bengal. And this is a really cool issue, because we get the origin of the Wayne family and the L family in this medieval world. And how is it that Bruce Wayne has superpowers like Superman? You find out in this. What I really like about this series too, the Elseworld setting is, it's funny when you start something like this, you think, okay, so this is going to be kind of a one for one, like, oh, how are they going to do this story or this character in this universe? The traditional DC characters are just a jumping off point on this, because some stuff are kind of mixed around. Some characters take on mantles that other characters have in the main DC universe. I think that's really fun. That kind of means you don't know what to expect. But you do get a really cool backstory in this about when the L family crashed on I guess this version of Earth. What did they do, and how did they eventually reveal themselves to be the superpowered people that they are? And then what ended up leaving Bruce in the care of the L family. So you'll definitely have to read it to get all the details, but I feel like this clears up a lot of the mystery of the first few issues of it. And they're putting out that 3-issue collection that'll come right before this. I feel like that's a really good of like kind of a chapter 1. This is like a little interlude, but a very good interlude, and then we're going to be getting, I guess, the next 3 in the next chapter of it. So, Dark Knights of Steel, number 4, really cool issue. And this is a 12-part issue, so I like that we are getting some of these little middle things that are just clearing up some of the world. Then we have a really cool Middleton variant with your jester of the court, Harley Quinn. And then we have...
I just imagine her singing with her like northern accent.
I know. What is her accent in this world where there is no New York and no North America? Then we have a 1 in 25 Bengal variant. You see the L's, and we are selling this to our customers for $15.
All right, so I read Fantastic Four Reckoning War Alpha. This is by Dan Slott. Now, The Reckoning War is a story that Dan Slott has been hinting at for, I can't remember, I mean, at least 15 years. Mm-hmm. He's been like having little bits of comics where people from different timelines have been like, oh, has the Reckoning War happened yet? And then, the character's like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, I can't tell you. So this has come up for a while. And so in this, a while back, Uatu, the Watcher, he was killed by Nick Fury. And because he did that, they made Nick Fury become the new Watcher, and they put Uatu's eye in him. Well, lately, in another series, Uatu came back to life from the eye, and he has now made Nick Fury his herald. So a lot of flip-flopping on their relationship. But that's where this begins, is Nick Fury is basically doing surveillance for Uatu, but we're talking like galactic surveillance. And they see that for some reason a mysterious person, they don't know, or people, are arming all of the different warlike races across the galaxy. They're giving them like really powerful weapons that Uatu says this is from like this one war that like destroyed the whole universe once. So we have some secret enemies who we don't know who they are. That's just where the comic begins. This has a lot in it. I believe it's an oversized issue. We've got the Avengers in it. We've got the X-Men in it. They don't play big parts, but they're all in it. The Fantastic Four, of course, they're kind of the center of it. You also have a part with Silver Surfer where it's like also in the cosmic part of the universe, hardly anyone can get to, where like Eternity hangs out.
Mm-hmm.
Silver Surfer is learning some very deep info about this Reckoning War as well. So it's hard to know what it's going to be, but it seems very, very big. The last point I think I'll make about it is this all connects in with Jen Walters' She-Hulk.
Wow.
Yeah, like they have a footnote. It goes back to her 2005 series and some information she learned. Like I said, Dan Slott has been putting like these little nuggets of it. I think he had a story and Marvel like was like, I don't know if we want you to write that or when. And he put it in so many issues that Marvel's like, dang, we got to clear this up. Let him do the event. So I'm kind of interested, this is something that, he's written a lot of comics that he's been thinking about for a really long time. So it'd be really cool to see how this sort of pans out. So a lot going on in the issue, though. A lot of fighting, a lot of explaining, a lot of cosmic space stuff. And one very big event happens that involves, I don't know if I can even talk about this, but something important to the Earth that gets changed forever. I don't know if it's going to link it with other comics or not, because I don't know how every other comic wouldn't notice what happened in this. Mm-hmm. So you'll know it when you see it. You'll know it when you see it. Sure.
I'd like to hear from Dan Slott. How do you finally, this thing you've been teasing, how do you finally go?
Right.
I mean, that's big. You've been laying out for so long. I'm sure he's thought multiple times, is it time to do this story yet, or do I still want to lay a few more seeds? So
yeah, that is a good question. Maybe because of the She-Hulk connection, maybe he got the green light because She-Hulk's show is coming up, and sometime late this year. Maybe Marvel's like, hey, let's give her a little more spotlight. Mm-hmm. So we have this one variant for it. This is the Caselli variant for it.
Okay, my next one is one that is a answer that if you've been reading the X-Men books, you've probably thought about multiple times. Where is Sabertooth and what is he doing? Is he dead? So we get the answers in Sabertooth #1. Now this is really cool because this picks up, it starts when Sabertooth was the first mutant put on trial on Krakoa for murder. And at that time, their way of fixing that is like kind of a zero tolerance. You get sucked into Krakoa. There's even kind of one of those pages they've been doing in the X books that's mostly text, but it's like, here are the theories about where Sabertooth is. Is he in the brain? Is he in the heart of Krakoa? Is he in the stomach? It's funny, but you do get the answer to where he is. So I don't want to spoil too much, but you do have to know, because this is where this book goes into it, and it is not just Sabertooth sitting in the dark for, smelling pine or whatever. Because Sabertooth has been somewhere, Krakoa has created something that kind of keeps Sabertooth occupied. Now, what is that? What does Sabertooth like to do? He likes to hunt. So we get a pretty startling scene where Sabertooth looks like he's in somewhere like Canada or whatever. He's fighting a bear. The X-Men come along. He fights the X-Men. But then he is confronted with Cypher, who is kind of the spokesperson for Krakoa, that gives him kind of a deal. Like, hey, we were looking at what we did where we sentenced you, and we think we might have been a little too harsh. Now, we're not letting you go, but here's something that you might be able to go with. So, very interesting. Now, we do see a little bit how this is going to tie in with the whole X storyline, but Sabertooth, let's just say, has kind of done a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect. I'll give a hint. Maybe even leading the Starjammers. So you'll have to read it to find out how that's even possible. But the way this ends, Sabertooth does something that only someone kind of as savage as he could do. And if Krakoa has a hell, he is now the king of it. So a lot happens in this issue. Really interesting. I'm very interested to see where this goes because it has a lot of elements to it. And I think Sabretooth is quickly becoming a very big threat for the establishment of Krakoa. So, really awesome issue. Sabretooth #1.
Once he teams up with Mystique, it's all over.
Yeah, and there's a quiet council in this. Maybe Sabretooth thinks he needs his own council. Who's on it? You'll have to see. Probably only people he trusts. And then we also have this really nice Ryan Brown cover.
All right, so new indie book that I think is very noteworthy. This is New Masters #1. This is by two brothers named Shobo and Shof, who are they're Nigerian brothers, writer-artist team. And I have to say, this is what indie comics are all about, because when you get people who are from a different culture, exposed to a different culture, it's a different sort of storytelling than you get out of people who have just I grew up in the U.S. or we grew up in England.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have that homogenized storytelling. So the story feels very, very fresh. The art is awesome. The way this is described, it is called Afrofuturism, which is basically any sci-fi story that takes place primarily in Africa, which this one does. So it is Earth. It's hard to know what year. They give a year, but the calendar has changed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like
It's star date something something.
yeah, so you don't know, but it feels pretty far into the future in Africa. And you follow this girl named Ola and her robot whose name is Ole. And she's doing something very dangerous. There's this I guess it's a mineral or a gem called obsidian that if people want to find it, they want to harvest it because it's worth a lot of money. So I always like in sci-fi they'll do that. They'll have like sort of the MacGuffin thing everyone's after. In Dune it's the spice. In this, everyone wants obsidian. It's worth a lot of money, and so you can tell this girl she's poor, but she's very resourceful. And I like the way she's written because you just are on her side when you kind of hear how she talks to her robot. Because her robot isn't just a robot, it's also like a social media device. So it's telling her, your mom's calling, and this person wants to friend you. But at the same time, the robot's really useful. Now, how much like Earth is this planet? It's reminiscent. So you'll see beautiful African plains, and you'll see creatures that look a bit like you'd see in Africa, but they've changed. So it gives it that alien feeling, but not completely alien feeling. Pretty early in, they go up against a monster, and you get to see how she deals with that. You get to see how the robot deals with that. There's a lot in this book. Like I think it would have been enough. Most comics would have just had her and their adventure, but this goes way past that. You get to see sort of a market in the future at night, what that looks like. You could tell a lot of work has gone on into this before they ever started drawing this. Like it feels like a very big world. I can easily compare it to We Live. I can easily compare it to that. It's got that just that something extra you don't find in every indie book, with fantastic art and just a world that is waiting to be more explored. They describe it as a sci-fi love letter set in futuristic Africa. So I recommend this to anybody who likes sci-fi and indie books. It's just an easy issue #1 you should pick up to see if you like. So we have one variant for it, which is done also by Shelf, who is the artist for the main cover. It's one of those books, they're doing everything.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, my first Star Wars book of the day. There's a couple of them, but I want to start with this one. This is Star Wars: The Halcyon Legacy. So, what is the Halcyon Legacy? Well, it is the new hotel at Disney that I will hopefully be able to go to in the next 30 years, maybe when there's an opening. But it is set up like a starship, And this is kind of telling you some of the lore behind the ship that's going to be a hotel there, the in universe lore. So the Halcyon is kind of a luxury cruiser, and in it we have this young girl and her grandparents that are going to go for like a vacation on this. They're very excited, but this is set what they say now, which the now in Star Wars is kind of post. Um, Original trilogy. It's kind of First Order, Resistance, that kind of thing timeline. And it's interesting because the ship is about to celebrate its 275th anniversary. And with that, there is a droid that has been there the entire time that actually remembers the grandfather when he went on it originally. Now, just as they're getting settled in, there is a pirate attack from a new character called Crimson Jack. So I think what's funny about this is I think a lot of this stuff is stuff when you go to the hotel and you experience it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, they're pulling in elements. You know, some locations, some names. Probably this droid is gonna be somewhat in the hotel, maybe an animatronic. Um, and the little girl's afraid of this attack, but the droid tells her, "Oh, stuff like this has happened before. Way back during one of the first trips this cruiser has taken, there was an attack. Maybe you know about people called the Jedi, and it goes back to High Republic era. So we get a story with High Republic with on the cover Buryaga, the Wookiee Jedi, and his master, and we get just kind of a run-in with the Nile." And everything. And it looks like each issue of this is going to jump different time frames as the ship has been around. It looks like the next one will probably take place during the prequel era because on the cover we have like Aura Singh and Zam Wessel on the covers, which is really cool. It's a fun issue. It's funny because it's going to be a very select few of us, especially watching this video, that are going to get to experience this hotel. This is going to be booked for most of my life. But giving us a little insight on, there was a lot of lore put into this. This is written by Ethan Sachs, who's been writing the Bounty Hunters book. It's really fun. It's definitely kind of Star Wars light. It's not heavy in continuity, but you get fun adventures. So I really enjoyed it. I think this is going to be a fun one. There's little hints of what's to come. You see Anakin fighting Asajj Ventress in this. You kind of see what the life of this ship is going to be. So I'm excited to read the rest of it. If you're excited about the Disney stuff, you'll definitely want to check this one out. So that is Star Wars Halcyon Legacy #1. There's a few variants for it. We have the Slimy connecting variant. So you see how it's all going to kind of tell a story. We have the Pascal Fairy cover. We have the Wendigard variant, all featuring these High Republic characters. And then we have the Attraction variant, which that's our droid on there. So I assume this is either concept art or kind of pictures of what they're working on. This is a 1 in 10, and then we are selling for $10. $30. Excuse me. add 2 more tens to that. 3 $10, $30. I was thinking about the 1 in 10.
All right, so if New Masters was my favorite indie book of the week, which I don't know if I can say that. There's a lot of good books out this week, because I'm going to be talking about Noctera. I'm going to be talking about this Image Timeline book in a little bit. But anyway, if I had to, gun to my head, I might pick that as my favorite indie book of the week. Monkey Prince was my favorite DC book of the week. So I read issue #1. Very strong, awesome opening issue of a very different character with a very strange origin. So this is by Gene Yang and Bernard Chang. So the first question I'll ask is, what if your parents growing up were, they worked for villains? And I don't mean they were goons, but they also weren't like the top villain. They were, they build the machine that head villains need smart people
Yeah.
to build their devices and do stuff. Well, the kid, the Monkey Prince kid, his name is Marcus. That's what his parents do. They're in the villain game. And what happens if Batman shows up one night at your house? He doesn't know you're there. Well, that could traumatize you.
Yeah.
That could leave you with a little bit of a fear of Batman and all things Gotham. So something like that kind of happens to Marcus, and he's moved away. The family moves a lot, as you can imagine. Villain families probably do. He doesn't know what his parents do, by the way. This is definitely for the reader to know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've just come back to Gotham after a lot of years, and he's not too happy about this because of his anti-Gotham, anti-Batman phobia. And he's in high school when weird things start happening. Uh, like you'll have to read how, but it's like he's plagued by sort of a weird clouds that he calls a burp cloud. And, let's say you're sitting in class one day and somebody points at your butt and you have a tail. So this all comes out of nowhere. And we don't quite know yet how does this figure in with his parents, or does it at all. But what we do learn is there is kind of a secret master hiding out at the school. So I think it's his first appearance, this master guy who is, his name is Shifu Shifu Pigsy is his name. And he has a little bit of a Pigsy look to him. Well, he, in a way, he takes Marcus through what he calls the water curtain and reveals his true heritage, and that is that he's the Monkey King, or the Monkey Prince. So the Monkey Prince, you get to see some of his powers this issue. You get to see him go up against some school bullies. There's a surprise special appearance by Damian Wayne. Gotham, how many schools can it have? You might bump into a superhero's kid or a supervillain's kid. But I will tell you this, the ending of this, you cannot predict. Like, if you take 20 guesses of what the ending is for this, specifically what happens, no one would guess it. It's the weirdest ending, but really good. Like, it makes me want to read the next one. A lot of good comedy. Just overall, just a delightful, fun read. I just found I was really enjoying myself turning the pages. The art is good. Just some clear, strong comic art. So Monkey Prince gets my seal of recommendation. Issue 1 was excellent. We got some good variant covers. Here is the Art Germ variant cover. And then we have the 1 in 25 Radak Rishanan cover that we are selling for $20 to our customers. Oh, and that's it.
That's it. Okay, my next one is another. I mean, there's a lot of number ones this week.
There are
a lot of really interesting, strong ones. So, my next one is Savage Spider-Man. So you can see at the top where the Savage is, it's covering over nonstop, and that gives you a little hint to kind of how this is. So, Nonstop Spider-Man was a book that was going on that kind of got. It didn't get canceled, but just because of certain delays and everything, it ended short. And this is taking its place, but they completely know it is. Like, it is the probably what that Nonstop Spider-Man was going towards, and it morphed into this. So, if you had been reading Nonstop Spider-Man, you'll understand the storyline probably a little bit better than someone who hasn't read it. Because this picks up where that left off. There is an island that Baron Zemo, who is kind of a big villain in Nonstop Spider-Man, and Spider-Man have been dropped onto. And it's kind of a cursed island. I think it's in the shape of a skull, just one of your classic spooky islands, by a kind of a cabal of maybe gods or some kind of super-powered people. See, this is the part I didn't quite understand was the parts that came from Nonstop Spider-Man. It didn't take away from my enjoyment of it. It just made it where it's like, I might need to look up who some of these characters are. But the main part of this is, and it explains it in the opening, that these people gave Peter Parker a certain, serum or whatever, and the way it reacted with him turned Spider-Man into this horrifying spider monster, this savage Spider-Man. and it even says, you know, it kind of lowers your intelligence. It makes him more of a monster. He can still talk, but a very like stunted speak. He's got vague memories of who people are, but it's still very your classic kind of Frankenstein's monster, the way he talks, and a little childlike and everything. And he just hungers. You can see him kind of spider web up a boar, and he's about to eat it. But this is much in the spirit of Nonstop Spider-Man, very nonstop. This is a very quick. You have to force yourself to slow down in this because it's very the momentum's going, the dialogue is light, and it benefits to slow down and really look at the art because the art is awesome, especially whenever you see the Savage Spider-Man. But I enjoyed the issue. I think it's definitely going to benefit those who read Nonstop Spider-Man. But the highlights of this definitely are the monster bits where you see. I mean, it's not just, you know, Spider-Man, but he's got multiple arms. He's got the full like thorax and everything. He is a kind of a crawling giant spider creature that is really fun just to look at and see how he fights, because there's some other monsters on this island that he's going to have to take out and maybe even team up with Baron Zemo. So, fun #1 of Savage Spider-Man. And this one also all about the variants. Such good ones. So we've got the Perez homage variant. It's not George Perez, I believe it's Per Perez. But great homage to Spider-Man. And you see, like, he's a big old spider guy. So we've got that one. We have the Sandoval, also homage cover. That is our interior artist. We have our, of course, we couldn't get through the day without a Ron Lim cover. Very cool. I think everyone really wanted to draw this character. We have the classic Bagley cover. We have the really fun Scotty Young variant. And then finally, we have this 1 in 25 Casanovas variant. We're selling to our customers for $25. Kind of hard to say, but very creepy.
Okay, the next one I checked out was from Marvel, The Excellent. That's how I say it. It might just be The Excellent. I don't know.
Excellent.
So this is written by Peter Milligan with art, of course, by Mike Allred, which, I mean, that's what this is all about. It's all about the Mike Allred art. So previously, Mike Allred did Ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like all the stuff from them, you're going to like this. The Ecstatics, they have disbanded at this point, and You Go Girl from them, she has she's gotten these new teleportation powers that are teleporting people to her, including a new team, which is the Excellent. So we have a lot of sort of battle between this new team and the Ecstatics in this, is what goes on. By the end of the issue, not everyone survives. It's just a really wild, crazy issue.
Yeah, if you know Mike Allred and Peter Milligan's run on Ecstatics, this is not... It's I don't know if it's necessarily even in the main Marvel universe. I know Ecstatics started kind of its own weird other X-Men.
Mm-hmm. They don't go into that really. They ignore the rest of the Marvel universe. But believe me, there's so many characters in this that, you know, you don't really need all the rest.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, you got the Ecstatics characters who, although they're disbanded, they're like filming a TV show about all their exploits. And when they learn there's this other team, they immediately start battling. There's a lot of egos going on in this. But like I said, it does lead to like a fairly major death. So, you know, it's not a plot light story. There's a lot of good humorous lines to it, but a lot of story, a lot of different characters. And it also has a Scotty Young variant cover.
Does Dupe make an appearance?
Yes. He does make an appearance. There's kind of a new dupe for the Excellent you'll have to see, who isn't nearly as cute.
Pood.
It's kind of a floating eyeball character. So,
Oh, cool.
so I also should mention these characters. Their first appearance has already happened. The excellent. They appeared in giant size ecstatics back from 2019. So even though there's a
Okay.
lot of characters, I don't know if there are any actual first appearances in this.
Okay. So next up, we have part 4 of 5 of Justice League Incarnate. So I've already seen a few articles on this one because I mean this is a dense book in DC lore. Now I'm a big fan of that. I've liked all the crises and kind of the way they're self-referential. Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Crisis on Multiple Earths. All of those kind of feed into this, and a thing with it, and it's funny because you hear people complain every time there's a new crisis that they're rewriting the history. That's kind of the nature of crisis books at DC. They each kind of say something about the previous history of the DC universe and say, well, you didn't know who was actually behind that the whole time. That's a little bit what this does, but I think that's kind of the fun of the DC universe is it compounds upon itself. So a lot of this is exposition from Captain or Doctor Multiverse about really the history of the DC universe, talking about Final Crisis, Death Metal, just all these events that you know, and kind of how they all feed into what's currently going on. I thought this was a lot of fun if you're a fan of that kind of DC storytelling. Um, it is there's still some action in it. There's a lot of characters. The art is great, but it is definitely kind of one of those you have to have these every so often to kind of clear things up about okay, what is going on with the DC universe and what's its current status quo and who's the big villain out there that we're kind of afraid of. This definitely sets up who is the greatest evil currently in the DC universe, and everybody else was just working for him because he's out there and he's coming type thing. So cool issue. I am very interested to see how it wraps up and then what is next because I feel like this was kind of the necessary middle chapter in something bigger. So DC Justice League Incarnate number 4 of 5 out this week. We are out of the variant.
So Nocterra number 7 is out tomorrow, which begins the new story arc. And it really feels that way too. The team has really grown. They're now the Sundog Convoy. So it's not just the one truck. We got a convoy of 4 different vehicles with different drivers, different helpers and passengers. And so this one's great because it starts out and it goes through who everyone is. This is all from a perspective of one of the characters. But they go through, here's who's driving this truck, and here's who's with them, and here's how we know them. And if you've been reading, you'll know them all. But it's nice to see them all together. And I don't think I realized that they all had joined. But it does make sense because a lot of where some of them were from has been destroyed at this point. So I guess it makes sense they kind of just joined the convoy. And their mission, which they all acknowledge, is they're trying to save the world. They are trying to find a way to bring back the light and literally save the world. It's rare in books, especially early on, where characters will like say something that big.
Yeah.
But I mean, Nocterra is a terrible. The world is in terrible state. It needs to be saved. So there's a new location in this called the Drive-In, which I really like. Now, Nocterra has been optioned. They are making it into, I think, a show. So when I see a new location I'm like, great, now I get to see how that's going to look, full motion. Yeah. And so what is the Drive-In? Well, of course, the Shades don't like light, and so this place is just a ton of screens everywhere. Big screens, small screens, and they're all blasting bright movies. But it's where people live. It's to keep the dark away. Sounds like a place I would love to move to if I had to be in the Nocterra world. So beyond that, there is some evidence discovered that maybe the Shades have a little more thought to them, or maybe they're evolving, or maybe there's a new kind of one, which is scary. And lastly, we get more Blacktop Bill. The question is, what made Bill how he is? And are there others like him? You may find that out by the end of this issue too. So another very strong issue of just a great independent comic. The art always just stellar in Noctera. And we got some cool variant covers too. Here is the Fabok variant cover. Then we have this variant cover by Dani, D-A-N-I. And then we've also got
This one was very popular.
the Daniel cover. I guess we know what types of people will pick up Noctera.
People who like heads on sticks.
Yep. Walking Dead's over. Let's jump on Noctera. Here's the 1 in 10 Danny Virgin variant for $15. And here's the 1 in 25 Fabok version sketch variant that we're selling for $20.
Okay, next up, back to Star Wars, we have Crimson Reign #2. So this is the big event going on in the Star Wars universe about Qi'ra and her ruling of Crimson Dawn and kind of how she is going to attempt to make the galaxy a better place, and she knows it's not going to be pretty doing it. So what is this issue about? It is about the two characters on the cover, her two assassins. So we have Ochi of Bestoon, who we've gotten a lot of through the Darth Vader series.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really, he's now a pretty main character in Star Wars. And Deathstick, the very weird, silent, kind of your classic assassin type character. They've both been in it quite a bit, but this time we do get a origin of why Deathstick is the way she is. We kind of see her little origin story. It's just only in a couple of panels, but Qi'ra kind of talks. She's talking to some friends or confidants or something through this, and she's kind of narrating. Here's how I get people to do things for me. You've got to know what drives them. And so she's explaining what drives different people to do different things. What drives a Jedi to kill, a bounty hunter to kill, but also like Darth Vader to kill. And they all have their reasons that they justify. And then she brings up these two assassins and kind of how she gets them to do what she wants. And she's not a bad character. Qi'ra, you can tell she has really honest reasons. She really wants to make the galaxy a better place. But is she going about it the right way? So this follows Ochi and Deathstick on two separate missions. Now, who they're hunting and what is it going to, how is it going to benefit Crimson Dawn? You'll have to read it to find out. There is some reappearances of some characters. I believe one that was from Dr. Aphra, which was pretty interesting. I would have to go back to see if the storyline that they reference, if that's where it's from. But this was a good issue. It wasn't like groundbreaking and no, surprise new characters or whatever. But it definitely is beefing up the story of the Crimson Dawn and Qi'ra as, we don't know where she's going to end up, but it's going to be interesting to see. This is leading towards something, and I'm excited to see what that is. So, Crimson Reign #2. We've got some variants for it. Actually, quite a few variants. So this is the Warriors of Dawn variant with Deathstick. We have the Fam Syndicate variant, this time with Black Sun and all the Falleen. We've got the Raza Knights of Ren Crimson variant. We've got the Crane Enemies of Dawn variant. Hard to see the little Emperor down there. We have the Anadito Connecting variant. And lastly, we have the 1 in 25 Lopez Sabak card variant that we are selling to our customers for $20.
All right. Also out this week is Detective Comics issue 1051. So right on the cover there, we see someone, and on the bottom it says Psycho Pirate. So it is not a spoiler for me to say that Psycho Pirate is in this issue. Um, this has been tough to talk about without spoiling because it's a weekly series now. And so it's moving really, really fast, and a lot of mysteries are getting resolved, sort of week to week. And usually I let people have at least a month before I talk about something.
Yeah.
But you just can't do that with this one.
You've had basically 4 months worth of comics.
So what we do know from the beginning of this plot line is that they showed us early in that Arkham Tower was going to end up in some grave trouble. That pretty much all the patients were going to go back to being criminals, and start attacking. The Bat family was going to have some people in that are trapped. We got all that glimpse right in the first issue of the arc. So this does a little bit with that because we go to day 18, and on day 18, the mayor is visiting.
Mhm.
And of course, so all the patients are on their best behavior. Now, how are they on their best behavior? If you read last issue, you know how. I won't say that. But let's just say that the method that's being used is wearing thin. This method can only do so much for so long and to so many people. And so with the mayor having an expected visit on day 18 and all the patients being so good that day, we go to day 19 where how they were making this work falters, and we get to see everyone kind of turn back to themselves, and it is chaos.
Kind of
Now,
a hint back to what we saw in the beginning.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think that was like day 20 something.
Mm-hmm.
So this is only day 19, but we get to see a glimpse of that. I'm not saying that it stays that way, but we get to see here's what happens when whatever is being utilized to make all the people in Arkham docile goes away.
Yeah.
They've got some pent up
They've
rage
got some
and
aggression.
problems.
Yeah.
And of course, there are members of the Bat family in there who get embroiled in a lot of battles because of this. So let's see. There's also the backup story where there's the orphan who's been turned into a sleeper agent. And I mean, it's going to take years for this to go where it's going in the comic time.
Mm-hmm.
By Scarecrow. Well, this orphan now joins Penguin's gang, and I don't think Penguin knows what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what's going on in the backup story. So another thrilling issue of Detective Comics 1051. We're getting definitely far enough in the story that pretty soon we're going to hit that day 20 whatever, and everything's going to hit the fan. We have, of course, a Lee Bermejo variant.
Nice.
Yep. Oh, and a 1 in 25 Forna's variant that we're selling to our customers for $20. And that kind of explains why Penguin's on that one. Because he is in the issue.
Next up we have also kind of a weekly series. This is X Lives of Wolverine #2. So last week we had X Deaths of Wolverine. This is X Lives of Wolverine, where Wolverine is kind of mentally time hopping through his history and kind of the different roles he's taken on through his life. And because Omega Red has been popping up trying to hunt someone down, and it's up to Wolverine to prevent them in these time frames. Now, what's not clear is if he's actually changing history, which I don't think he is. Was this always, predestined?
Right.
Did he in the past take over the body? It gets very confusing there. But we don't know how Omega Red is doing it. He's kind of taking the form of characters within the different time frames. Now, in this, we see multiple time frames, where the first one we kind of saw one at the conception of the character that he is trying to save. But in this one, we see multiple time frames that are very familiar. So, Wolverine in Canada. He's kind of a younger guy. He's fighting a bear. Between this and the Sabertooth issue, there's multiple bear fights. So big bear fight issue. But this also takes place during when he's kind of a recon agent with Sabertooth and what's his name, Ravenger, I think. I can't remember the guy. He's a very 90s looking character, and the interesting thing is when Wolverine kind of becomes aware, the modern day one becomes aware in that time frame, he goes, "Oh, this was a really bad time in my life. Um, I don't like what I did here. Can I change this? Can I do something else?" Of course, Jean, who has been kind of like mentally being his tether, is kind of like, no, you need to stay on mission, but of course you can't tell Wolverine what to do. So Wolverine's going a little bit off the plan, but in a very interesting way. So there is I don't want to give away too much, but I'm interested to see how this affects the overall X-Men timeline because they're really shaking up some things that in the past he does that I imagine in the future some characters are not going to be happy about. Are they suddenly remember like, hey, didn't you shoot me in the past or something like that? We'll have to see how this all plays out. But this was another really good issue of X Lives of Wolverine. I've really liked this kind of weekly back and forth so far. We've got some variants. So we've got the Says variant, fighting a bear on the cover. And we have the Bagley trading card variant. That's kind of during that time frame where he was a kind of a soldier.
All right, so for our last few, we're going to speed up just a little bit. We're lucky enough to have artist Tom Wynn doing a signing with us today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we started the show a little earlier. You're probably watching, seeing that we're online a little earlier. So I want to mention Daredevil Woman Without Fear #2 is out this week. In it, she is going up against Craven, who has been handed her file from Wilson Fisk of her file of secrets. Of course, it is not resolved yet. This is a 3-issue series, so it sort of ends where the stakes are even higher, and it's really going to be sort of their final battle next issue. But cool issue where you get to see what the secrets are, and you get to learn how honest is Elektra with Matt Murdock, even as in love with him as she is. I don't have the variant. We sold out the variant.
Yeah, it's very popular. Next up, I have High Republic. This is number 14. This is a really good issue, but much like I mentioned with the Trail of Shadows, if you're not caught up on the books, if you're following the entire High Republic era, this also kind of leads to a very pivotal point in the High Republic storyline where something big happens. And we're kind of seeing it from a bunch of different angles of different characters. But a really cool issue following Avar Chris, and everybody's touching the dark side a little bit, probably more than they wanted. We have a couple of variants for it. So we have the McCone variant with Avar Chris on it. And we have the 1 in 25 Wendigard variant that we're selling to our customers for $30.
All right, I have not finished reading this, and I'm looking forward to it. So it is the official Image timeline. This is written by Jim Valentino. This is not a comic. This is a history of Image. So it's on the sides, you'll have bars of like little paragraphs of text, and next to them will be pictures of Image creators doing different things back, just as they were creating Image. You'll have comic covers that are relevant to what it's talking about, but it will tell you a lot of really cool trivia and tidbits, because this starts with before Image began. You'll learn, where did the logo come from? Where did the name Image, where did they take that from? Because that is taken from something. What made Rob Liefeld so mad that he called McFarlane and Larson and Valentino and said, hey guys, we need to start our own company. I got like maybe a third into this, and it's a lot to take in. It's awesome. It's so interesting. Like Valentino, he is telling you some really interesting stories. This is not making it look better or worse than it was. Mm-hmm. You get the nitty-gritty details. If you love the comics industry, if you're interested behind the scenes, this is probably one of the best things I've read in a long time. I'm going to read the last 2/3 of it as soon as I go home. Definitely for somebody like me, and I think other people will like it too. A lot of care has been put into it, but my favorite part is you can really tell he's trying to tell it honestly, because some parts don't make them look great, but that makes everything else so much more honest. Yeah. And I did laugh at a few things. These guys, they were bold and courageous back then, and it's, that's when I really got into comics, right around that time period. And man, what changes. And I did flip through the whole thing and seeing all the covers of all the different things Image has done over the years. I mean, my God, it's just really
Yeah.
impressive. So I do recommend this. So I'm glad they made it, even if only I enjoyed it.
No variant cover.
No
for that
variant
one.
cover. Nope.
And funny, you go from that, and my last one is Spawn issue 326. Just always want to mention when a new issue of Spawn's out. This one's really cool because, for one, this is a new writer on it, which I was surprised from. Sometimes it says like plot by Todd McFarlane, then written by. No, this is all written by Rory McConville. I'm not too familiar with that name, but cool to get a new voice on Spawn. And what's big about this one is Spawn teams up with Haunt, another character that had their own series drawn by Ryan Ottley and Greg Capullo and everything from 10 or 15 years ago. So really cool to see that. It was a very fun issue. And we have the variant for it. And this is the Barbary variant, which I think we may be sold out of. I'm not sure. This may be our last copy.
So the last one I would have mentioned, because I've been enjoying the series a lot, is One Star Squadron. Issue number 3 is out tomorrow. This is a 6-issue series. Superman makes a surprise appearance where he argues with the board of Heroes for You about why their hero app and business is a terrible idea from his moral standpoint. Past that, some more bad things happen to Red Tornado, and he is about to have to make some really difficult choices. Another good issue. I'd say maybe a slight less humorous, but still, this is a mix of humor and plot. It always has been. The plot just got turned up a little bit more in this one, but still some very humorous parts, especially just the way they draw Superman, his expressions with this board of business people. So that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We do appreciate that. We'll be back on Friday with Comics from the Future, and if you're looking for a comic store you want to deal with, we're going to leave you some order details now.